Welcome back, episode 196, Life in Stride podcast. On this episode, New York City Marathon preview. Let's freaking go. Guys, we have a couple of really stacked fields in a dynamic race course. We have great weather. I think we could get a couple course records this weekend, so I'm very excited. Broke down both of these races for the overall fields and also the American fields. And we also talked a little bit of, there's been some big news in the NCAA cross-country scene this weekend, so we broke that down, a little doping news in the NCAA, which is crazy. So talked about that a bit at the end of the episode as well. Made my race predictions. Make sure you drop your race predictions in the comments. I'd love to hear your top American choices and then your overall choices in the comments. So please let us know. Just a reminder, if you're running Indianapolis Monumental Marathon, we will be in Indy on Friday at 2 p.m. doing a shakeout. More info to follow on address. We do have a place picked out, but just keep that in mind for the Indy Marathon shakeout. If you're going to be in Indy, please leave a review if you haven't yet. Drop a comment, share with a friend. All of that helps us out a lot. We really appreciate it. And we'll catch you on 197. Love you, mean it. When we're running through Norton Commons or the Pewee Valley area in Louisville, Kentucky, it's pretty easy to spot Mason Construction Home. The attention to detail, the quality, the stunning design, you can't miss it. It stands out. We aren't just saying that either. Our own co-host Scotty trusted Mason Construction to build his forever home, and he and his family couldn't be happier. Don't tell Scotty this, but we're at his house a lot because we love the home. He's all right too, though. If you live in the Louisville or Southern Indiana area and are thinking about building your forever home or doing a remodel, there is nobody else to trust with this project than Mason Construction. The link to their website is in our show notes. Click on the request information option and start the conversation about what your forever home could look like. Welcome back to the Life in Stride podcast. This is episode 196. I'm bringing to you the New York City Marathon preview. I'm so stoked for this race. We have a dynamic race with hills, no pacers, and we have two stacked elite fields, and we also have really good race conditions. So I'm very excited to break down this race for you guys. Speaking of the weather, it's going to be mid-40s, low wind. I think the course records could go down this weekend. Again, it kind of depends how the race plays out. People typically like to go out a little slower in New York because there's no pacers and no one really wants to take the pace. So I'm very interested to see what happens in terms of pace. But I think we have two fields that are very capable of breaking the course records, and we have conditions that are sufficient for breaking the course records. So what are the course records? 204.58 by Tamarit Tola in 2023. It's been a couple years since he set that. I think there's several guys in this race, probably 3 or 4 that could probably do this with these good conditions. And then the women's course record, kind of crazy, 22 years since 2003. That's pre-Super Shoes era. And Kenyan woman by the name of Margaret Okeyo has that record, 22 years. So, and again, we have some absolute superstar women leading this field that could take down that time this year. It really just depends how the race plays out. Again, New York is such a dynamic race with the constant up and downs. There's a few flat sections, but a lot up and downs. You're running up bridges, you're running down bridges. You're going through Central Park the last few miles. So I think this is going to be a really fun race to watch. I hope they do attack the course records, but regardless, the way New York plays out a lot of the time, the last few miles of the race, you still have a few runners left going at it. And then it just comes down to like the hills of Central Park to determine the winner. And that's just like so epic. Like if you remember in Boston this year where John Career made that huge move up Heartbreak Hill, just like dynamic race stuff like that you wouldn't have in like paced settings or on like flat courses. As a spectator, that just makes it so much fun. It's just like a lover of competitive running. Like, I love Chicago Marathon, don't get me wrong, but like usually the winner of the Chicago Marathon is just like who can like last the longest with the lead pacer, right? In a race like New York, Boston, I don't know if Sydney had pacers or not. I know that was a hilly course too. I just think, with how these races are, again, with no pacer, hilly course, it's just as a spectator so much more fun to watch because you just don't know. It's pretty predictable, like Chicago this year. Like it was predictable that whoever was able to hang with the Pacers the longest, or hang on to the 201 pace that they set the longest, was probably going to win the race. That's what happened. John Career dropped out, and Kiplimo won the race. So yeah, I don't know. I think as a spectator, I get more excited for races like this because you just don't know what's going to happen. Are they going to go out slow? Are they going to go out really fast? Are they going to duke it out the last few miles in Central Park? Is someone going to make a huge move on one of the uphill climbs the last few miles? So yeah, dynamic race, really excited for this, and we have great conditions. So speaking of the hills, let's get some numbers down real quick. So elevation gain, 810 feet, pretty significant for like, I mean, for a marathon, that's not like crazy, but like in terms of if you're trying to run fast, not ideal. But again, that's what makes this race so fun is the up and down. We have also 824 feet of loss. So that is impactful on your quads. If you've run Boston before, you know that those first couple miles where you're like bombing downhill, that can really beat up your quads. So I know these runners will have been training on hillier long run courses, doing squat, like, stuff, getting the quads ready to go for this kind of race. So yeah, very excited for these fields. Let's dive into the women's field here first. I wanted to note really quick too. So, of course, we'll have a race recap of the New York City Marathon coming out next week, and we might have a special guest podcast host similar to how we did after the Chicago Marathon. We had Jacob Thompson on, the legend Jacob Thompson. We might have, I'm not going to drop his name, but I'll give you little hints. His name rhymes with Len Belton, and he has an Instagram name by the name of Len, well, not Instagram, a YouTube channel with that rhymes with the name Len is Bunning. So, hopefully you can understand those hints. Hopefully that was like right in between, like giving you too much, not giving you enough. So I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully you can guess who it is based on that. Anyway, let's dive into the women's race. Enough playing around. We have returning women's champ Sheila Chepkouri. She's a 2:17 marathoner. We got to talk about her first as the defending champ. Obviously, she knows the course. She's in great shape. I think she's going to be one of the 4 women. I think there's 4 women that can win this race. I think she's going to be one of the ones. She's proven herself on this course. I think, there's some women that are particularly very good at hilly courses, and we have especially in the upper echelon of marathoning. I think all 4 of them are here. So this is going to be really fun. The next one is Sharon Lokedi. She's a 2:17 PB. She's won this race before. She trains with Under Armour Dark Sky in Flagstaff. Got some insider information from my friend Jacob Thompson, who's on her team. He said she is in nasty shape. She's been ripping some huge progressive long runs. I think something that if you follow the East Africans training at all, or Emil Karras, who's the great British marathoner who trains in E10 a lot, they do a lot of like really long, like 40K, 24 miles progressive long runs. I've been trying to implement that more in my training as I train for marathons. And apparently she's had some really good ones up at Flagstaff at really high altitude. I think they're around 7,000 feet. So Sharon is in good shape for this race. I would highly anticipate her to be competing for this race. However, I do not think she's the favorite. So Hellen Obiri is the next one that we have to talk about. I also don't think she's the favorite, but she's going to be contending for the win. She also has a 2:17 PB. She's also, her and Sharon are kind of rivals at this point. So this is their 7th time racing the last few years. And they've raced New York and Boston against each other a lot. They both like racing the hillier races. I would love to see one of them in the next year or two, like hop on a faster course like Chicago or Valencia too, and see what they could do. I think that would be really exciting. So, so again, this is her 7th race. They've duked it out 6 times before. Helen is up 4-2 on Sharon. So look for Sharon to be trying to even that number out a little bit. The last woman I think that could win this race is probably the favorite of this race. She has about 4 minutes faster PB than any other woman in this race. It's Sifan Hassan, the Olympic gold medalist in the marathon. She just came off a great Sydney marathon race where she broke 2:20 on a pretty tough course. I think Sydney has a bit more elevation gain than the New York City Marathon course. So she proved herself on a hilly course there, and obviously Paris was pretty hilly as well, and she proved herself there and won that race. So I think Sifan, as long as that time window between Sydney and this race went well, which I'm sure she wouldn't be showing up to the start line if it didn't, I think she's probably going to be in pretty good shape and contending for this win. It's just super interesting that she ran Sydney, she ran Paris, and now she's doing another like pretty hilly course. So I think she's going to be ready to roll on Sunday in New York City. So I'm very excited. It was kind of funny. Her and Eliud Kipchoge were late additions to this race, and it's like, a lot of times when they have late additions, it's always like that's like kind of interesting, but it's like you drop like pretty much the 2 like most prominent marathoners, or 2 of the most prominent marathoners of the last few years in the field, like a little late past the original elite field announcement. It's just like it's pretty. It was crazy. I saw that and I was like, oh my gosh, like those are some major name drops there for the late edition. So uh, very excited to see her in the race. I think if I was a betting man, I would bet on Sifan Hassan to win this race. I think she is kind of a step above the other women in this field right now. I think Helen Obiri and Sharon, honestly, all the other three women that I mentioned could win this race, but I think Sifan Hassan, as long as she's in like pretty good form, I think she's probably going to win this race. Let's talk about the American women here a little bit. So we have some interesting names on the list. Obviously, Emily Sisson, I think, is probably the favorite to be the top American woman. She's the national record holder for the U.S. in the marathon with a 2:18 PB. However, this is her New York City debut, so we'll see how she does on the hills. I'm not sure if she's done Boston or not. She's obviously done really well at the flatter races. She's a really good half marathoner. She's ran fast times at Houston half as well. So we'll see how she does on the hills. I don't know. I'm sure, as a professional runner, having a good coach, I think she trains with Ray Tracy up in Providence, Rhode Island. He's a very well-known coach. I'm sure she was in the weight room, getting her quads ready for the up and down. I'm sure she did hilly long runs. So I'm sure she'll be ready to go in New York City. I think, people talk about this person's a good hill runner. This person's not. I think that really comes down to just like fitness and preparation. Like if she's in around 2:18, 2:19 shape, and then she just like got her quads ready for the pounding of this race, I think she's going to do well. So I would expect her. I don't think she's going to win. Would I be surprised if she snuck into third place by the end of this race? No. I think that'd be awesome. I'd be really stoked about that, but I wouldn't be surprised if, she got third, fourth, fifth, that kind of range. I don't think she's going to pull a Shalane Flanagan and win the race, but I do think she will be competitive for potentially a podium spot overall. And I think she's the favorite in the American women's field. Besides that, Fiona O'Keefe is probably the second favorite for me in the women's field. She won the Olympic trials over Emily Sisson in Orlando, but unfortunately she had the DNF at the Paris Olympics with a stress fracture. I think she only got like 3 miles in, unfortunately. So we didn't really see how she did on a hilly course, but granted, Orlando was like very brutal conditions. It was a hot race. So we know she can run in like brutal conditions. Let's see how she can do on a course like New York in good conditions. I'm very interested to see how she does. But I think if anyone's going to be Emily Sisson in this race, in terms of Americans, it's going to be Fiona O'Keefe. A few more interesting names on the women's side. Molly Seidel has been kind of a headliner the past few days. I've been seeing on news outlets. She actually just announced she's going to the trails next year. So very interesting. Obviously, she's the bronze medalist from the Tokyo Olympics in the marathon. So she's a great marathoner. I think she's done well at this race before. She's done well in majors in general prior, but she's had a lot of injury issues. So I was surprised to see her go to the trails, but I guess maybe doing trail races, she thinks she can maybe be a little healthier instead of the intensity of marathon. Obviously, if you're an ultra runner, I know ultra training is intense. Don't get me wrong, but it's a different type of intensity. Maybe instead of doing like speed work, she's going to do more longer elevation gain type runs that maybe she'll have better luck being less injured doing that kind of stuff. I'm not sure. So, but yeah, I don't expect her, just because like the nature of her being injured so much. I mean, I'm sure she wouldn't have signed up for this race if she wasn't in good shape. However, I don't expect her to be competing for the top American woman in this field with people like Emily Sisson and Fiona O'Keefe. I just don't think it's going to happen. If she ends up being the top American woman and doing really well in this race, please send me this clip and make fun of me. But I'm feeling pretty good that Emily Sisson or Fiona O'Keefe are going to lead the women's field. A couple names of note that are kind of, I don't want to say they're aging out of the top of American women's marathoning right now, but because they're still pretty competitive runners, right? Just because they're a little older now doesn't mean they're not competitive. But Sarah Hall's in here. She's a 2:20 marathoner. Huge fan of Sarah Hall. She's had an amazing career, and I just love every time I see her on a start line. I'm just excited to see her because she's going to race really hard, and big fan of Ryan, obviously her husband too. So yeah, love seeing Sarah Hall here. I think again she's the type of person that's not going to show up to a start line unless she's in pretty good shape. So I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think Sarah Hall is going to lead the American women. I don't think she would, but I could see her slotting into like maybe third American woman after O'Keefe and Sisson if she has a great day. Another name that I'm just a fan of, I don't think she's going to be top American woman, is Steph Bruce. I just, again, like seeing her in the field. Really like her socials. Think she's just been a great influence on a lot of runners. So happy to see her in this elite field as well. Are you a runner? Do you need running shoes, gear, apparel, more? If so, I got the scoop for you. Kencom's Running Store is the best place to buy any running supplies you need. Located in the St. Matthews area of Louisville, Kentucky, their friendly staff will take excellent care of you. If you are a newer runner and need help finding the right shoes, or you're looking to get plugged into the Louisville running community, this is where you need to start. If you don't live in Louisville, check out werunlou.com. We have a discount code and the link to the website in the show notes, and the shipping is free for purchases over $100. I promise you, Matt and team are the friendliest people you can meet. Don't hesitate. Get your running supplies at Kencom's Running Store and support an amazing local business. All right, let's dive into this men's race. If I missed anyone in the women's race of notes, please let me know in the comments. I think I missed Bashir Abdi in the Chicago preview, the Belgian, and we had a Belgian fan of the pod let me know that I forgot about him. So I don't think he did that great in Chicago anyway. He got top 10. I think he finished either one place ahead or behind of Rory. So, but yeah. So sorry if I missed anyone that you're a huge fan of. Let me know. Let's talk about the men's race. Obviously, I'm going to give some respect to the GOAT here. Eliud Kipchoge, I mean, come on. He's the GOAT. I don't think he's going to win the race. He just got ninth place at Sydney Marathon in August. I don't think he's going to win this race. I think he's probably going to be like between like 7th and 10th place probably. He's probably in decent shape. Like, he's just getting older, guys. I mean, he's getting older. I'll always be a diehard fan of Eliud, but I don't think he's going to be winning these big races anymore. But I have the utmost respect, because someone like him, there's two ways he could have gone, right? He either goes out on top, right? Like, he figures out that he's not in peak form anymore. He's almost 40 years old. He might be 40 now. And he's like, I'm done. But instead, he's continuing racing. I mean, same with like Kenenisa Bekele. Kenenisa Bekele is still racing a bit. He doesn't race a ton, but he's still racing some. He's not at the very top of his game anymore. He's still running under 210 in the marathon. I mean, that's still pretty good. I mean, that's cooking. So that'll get you in the elite field of these majors. It's just fun to see them out there still just pushing themselves and getting the best out of themselves, even though they know they're probably not going to win the race. Like, Eliud very well could have retired on top, but instead of, he's just going around doing races that he's excited to do. And I'm like such a huge fan of that, and I respect that so hard. So shout out to Eliud. I'm really excited. I hope he has a great race. Hope he proves me wrong and is competitive in this race, but I think he'll be probably pretty happy with just finishing top 10 in this race, if I had to say. So obviously next we got to talk about Abdi Najee. He's the Dutchman. He won this race last year. He is back. He has a lot of good competition, though. There's 7 men under 205. Pretty stacked. I don't think that's maybe quite as it's probably pretty similar to the Chicago field. I'd have to go back and see how many guys were under 205 in Chicago. I think it was similar, but so Abdi Najee won this race last year, so obviously he's going to be competitive in this. We also have several names that I wouldn't be. So this is we'll start here of my list of people that I think could win this race on the men's side. Abdi Najee, returning champ, the Dutchman, and then Benson Kipruto. He got Olympic bronze in Paris, which was, again, keep in mind, Paris was a hilly course, so that's important to know for people that did well in Paris, that they could probably do well in New York. So keep an eye on Benson Kipruto. He has a 202 PB, but he did get 7th in Tokyo in March in the Tokyo Marathon, not the World Champs. So want to make sure that's aware too, because the World Champs were just in Tokyo, but he ran Tokyo Marathon. So he's a 202 guy. He did well on the hilly Paris course. He did okay in Paris in March, but I would expect him to be competitive. Don't be surprised if you see him win this race. The Ethiopian Derisa Galida, he got 5th in the Paris Olympics. Again, that's relevant. Paris was a hilly course. He could do well on this course here, but he's also good on fast courses. He got 2nd place in Valencia, which is like pretty much a major at this point. A lot of the top dogs on the men's and women's elite side of things run Valencia. So to get 2nd place and run 202 at Valencia, very high level. So this guy, Derisa, don't forget his name, from Ethiopia, 202 PR. He's fast on fast courses, and he's fifth in the Paris Olympics. He's good on hilly courses. So that combination could be really useful in this race. Evans Chebet, 203 guy, staple in the world majors. I think I wouldn't be surprised to see him win this from Kenya. And then one name that I was pretty interested in. So if you guys remember, I did a recap of the World Major Marathon. So this was the one just a couple months ago in Tokyo on that really hot day. And Alphonse Simbu from Tanzania won that race, right? And he had like epic finish with Petros from Germany, and they're like duking it out to the line. And Simbu like got the lean on him and fell at the finish, right? And so Alphonse Simbu, who won that race in Tokyo just a couple months ago, is running New York. He has a 204 PR, so he's like he can run well in like tough conditions, but he's also good on fast courses with the 204 PR. I think to win this race, you probably need to be in around 203, 204 shape at least, but you also need to be ready for the pounding of the up and down on the hills. So it's very likely, again, the way New York usually plays out is the first half is kind of slow, but then they rip the last like 5-10K. So a lot of the times there is like a bigger pack later in the race than maybe a lot of other majors are. Like Chicago kind of blew up after halfway. It was very strung out in the men's and women's races after like 13, 15 miles, just because the nature of the paces. But a lot of the time in a race like New York, they go out a little slower because there's no pacers. And then obviously just like if there's no pacers, none of these guys want to take the wind, be in the lead and kind of burn themselves for the end. So a lot of the time it goes out a little slower. So that leaves a lot more guys there at like 30K mark, like 18 miles with like 8 miles to go. So yeah, so I think like there's going to be a lot of these, pretty much all these guys, like all 7 guys under 205 PRs, maybe even a couple of these Americans I'll mention might be there at like mile 18. And we'll see what happens, right? But if I had to choose someone to win this race, ooh, tough call. I'd probably pick Benson Kipruto. I think 202 guy. He's proven himself at the Paris Olympics course. As long as he had a good build, he's probably my pick. I don't know if I made a pick for the women's race, but I think Sifan Hassan is like far and away the best runner in the women's field. So I think she would win. She's going to win the race, and Emily Sisson will be the top American. I think those are like 2 pretty obvious choices in the women's race. But yeah, if I had to pick a guy to win this race, it's going to be Benson Kipruto. I just think his resume is fitting of champion. However, it's tough because like people that win New York tend to like be at least like pretty competitive for the podium again the next year. So Abdi Naji, I think he's going to be competitive, but I don't know. I feel like this field is like a little too stacked for me to easily pick him again. So I'm going to go with Benson Kipruto of Kenya. I'd love to see Eliud Kipchoge finish like top 5. Would be like a really good day for him. I think more than likely he'll finish in that 5th to 10th range though. So we'll see how he does. Let's talk about the Americans a little bit. We have some interesting American storylines here, so stay with me. First one I want to mention, he's probably the favorite to lead the American field. For the men is Bias Mbassa. He has a 206 PR from Valencia 2024, which was the same race that Derisa from Ethiopia, the 202 man, got second place in. So, gosh, 206 in Valencia in 2024 probably got you like 20th place or something. That race is like crazy deep. But yeah, so Bias Mbassa, he trains in Flagstaff. My buddy Jacob actually told me, I think we were offline. I don't think we were on the pod, but he said that Bias Mbassa is probably his pick for top American in New York, and probably his pick for one of the Americans to make the trials and or make the Olympic team in the marathon in 2028 and for Los Angeles. So yeah, Bias Mbassa is a 206 guy, trains in Flagstaff. Jacob Thompson seems to think he's in good form after seeing him training in Flagstaff. So he is my pick for top American man. There is a couple other of note in here that are very interesting, especially if a few of these debutants. I want to talk about them. Alex Mayer is the next American who is not a debutant. I think he ran at Oklahoma State, if I believe, and he runs for Puma now. I think he's with the North Carolina group with Puma. So he won the U.S. half champs in March. He has a 208 PB. I don't think he's on the same level as Bia Simbasa. However, I wouldn't be surprised if he got like second or third American. I just don't think he's going to be top American. I think honestly, Bia Simbasa is like far and away the best American in the out of the Americans in the New York City field. One of the debut guys could surprise us though, but yeah, I think Bia Simbasa is the guy. The last American that is not someone who's debuting that I want to talk about is Reed Fisher. So Reed Fisher is a 210 PB, which like, I mean, I'm gonna put in air quotes modest, right? Because like I would love a 210 PB. Come on, but with that being said, like there are several Americans that have run faster than him at this point that are active marathoners. With that being said, Reed Fisher is pretty steadily consistent in world majors. I don't think he's going to contend for top American in this race. Maybe if he gets like second or third American, that would be great. But he's pretty steady. Like I wouldn't be surprised if Reed Fisher ran in like the 209 to 211 range, which would probably get him a pretty high placement among the Americans. Again, second or third. I don't think he's going to be top American, but yeah, he's just like really steady at most of these races. He runs like um, he kind of reminds me like CJ Albertson a little bit. I think CJ is maybe a little step above Reed, but CJ is always kind of in a certain range where you can expect him like 208 high to like 211. I think Reed's like always, you can kind of rely on him to be like his PB is 210, but like anywhere between like 209 high and like 212. I think you can always kind of rely on him to be in that range at majors. So we'll see how he does. I hope he has a breakthrough here, but that's kind of where I expect Reed Fisher to land. Um, all right, let's get into some interesting debuts here in the men's field for the Americans. So the first one I feel like I have to mention, he has the fastest half PB of these three, is Hillary Bohr. So if you're trying to think who Hillary Bohr is, he is he was most well known as a U.S. steepler. So he's made the Olympic team, several world championship teams in the steeple. He's ran like pretty fast at under 810, I believe. So he's a really good steepler, and he's taken well to the roads. I was reading in an interview before New York, he said that he feels like even though he was good at the steeple, he feels like the roads are like his true calling, and he's been taking very well to the roads. And he's proven that. He's ran 59:55 and a half leading up to this race this year, so which only a few American men have ever done. So we'll see how he takes to the marathon. It's hard to say. Again, like good half marathoner doesn't always translate to a good marathon. I think I used the example of Zerzene Tedesse. He was the Eritrean guy in the first Eliud Kipchoge attempt at sub 2. If you remember that first attempt they did in Italy, it was Kipchoge, Lalisa Desisa, and the Eritrean Zerzene Tedesse. And they chose the Eritrean guy because he was the half marathon world record holder, and he like blew up around like 208. And he like never ran a good marathon, really, like not nearly as good as his half PR was. So just because you're a good half marathoner doesn't make you a good marathoner. But I would expect Hillary Bohr. He trains with like Paul Chalima's group in Colorado Springs, I believe. Zuhair Talbi's in that group. Half to Night. There's a lot of good marathoners in that group. So he was training with the right guys at altitude. I wouldn't expect him to have a bad race here. I think if any of these men are going to compete for top American with Bia Simbasa, I would say it's Hillary Bohr. Even though it's his debut, I think just like based on the half he has run and just his pedigree on the track and who he's been training with, I think there's a good chance he could compete for the top American. But I'd still go with Bia Simbasa if I was a betting guy. A couple more that are of interest to me because I'm a fan of the NCAA system. Ooh, we got to talk about some NCAA stuff really quick too after this, by the way. I just thought of that. So Charles Hicks, if you remember the Stanford Cardinal, he ran at Stanford. He was running for Great Britain through college. Like he run European cross, stuff like that for Great Britain. But I've learned from my friend Jacob Thompson that usually shoe sponsors pay better for American citizens than maybe if like Charles Hicks was a British or running under the UK flag. Granted, like I think the UK marathon team is probably an easier team to make than the US men's marathon team. But if I had to guess, I'm sure if I had to guess, Nike is probably paying Charles Hicks a little more money for running under an American flag, just because like purely for marketing reasons. I think like that's where it comes in is like if he has a good like for example, if Charles Hicks runs really well in New York, is even top American, which I don't think he will be. But again, I don't know. It's his debut. If he is top American in New York and he's running for the U.S., obviously as top American, he would have to be running for the U.S. That's a lot more marketable for Nike instead of if he's like the top Brit. Like that would make some news, I'm sure, but like top American at a US race like New York for Nike, like marketing wise, that's like much bigger for Nike than if he's running under the British flag. Don't get me wrong, I love the UK. Love everything about it. I'm a huge fan of a lot of pro athletes running for Team Great Britain, but yeah, I think that was kind of his reasoning for running under the American flag now instead of Great Britain, is for probably for marketing and like just payment purposes. But anyway, enough on Charles. Enough on that. Enough on how much Charles Hicks is getting paid as a marathoner. He ran 45:14 in a 10 miler leading up to this race a few months ago. That's like 4:30 pace for 10 miles, people. That's zooming. That's very fast. So Charles Hicks is taken to the road well. If you remember when he was in college, he won the NCAA 10K outdoors. He was great in cross country, which will always translates well to the marathon. Connor Mance was great at cross country. If you remember that, Sharon Lokedi ran in the NCAA system. She was great at cross country. NCAA champ. So was Connor Mance. So yeah, Charles Hicks going to the marathon. I think this is going to be pretty smooth for him. I don't think he's going to be top American, but it is a lot of fun seeing him run for Team USA now. I think he will probably be a competitor for the trials in 2028. But his 10 miler is telling me a lot. And that's like, I mean, 4:30 pace for 10 miles, that's quick. So I think he's taken to the roads pretty well. I'm very excited to see what he does in his debut and excited to see him running for the US now. The last person I want to preview here, Joe Klecker, is running his marathon debut. I'm very excited about this. Honestly, I was surprised that I don't think he ran any track races this year. And I was surprised that he moved because he was running well on the track. If you remember, he won US 10K champs on the track, beat Grant Fisher in that race. Ran, I think he might have snuck under 13 in the 5K or came very close. So, I mean, he was a great track runner. And then he just made like a pretty hard cutoff between like track and road over the last year. He didn't have the debut he wanted. He debuted at Houston Marathon in January. Didn't go exactly how he wanted. He kind of got overshadowed. Well, a lot of American guys beat him, like several did. I want to say he ran like 101 or 102, which is still a great time, but not what he wanted. But he's been improving. He's been running a lot on the road scene here in the US. I don't think he's done any track races this year, again, which is surprising because he was so good on the track. But yeah, so he's all in on marathon. And apparently, I was chatting with our guy, Ben Felton, before I went live on this podcast. He said that Joe Klecker said on the Coffee Club pod, which is hosted by his teammates on the On Athletics Club team, that he was going for like a really high carb intake, like fueling setup, up like over 150 grams an hour is what he said on that podcast, is what Ben told me. So interested to see how that goes. I mean, the more carbs, the merrier. Don't get me wrong, but when I'm doing 100 grams an hour, it's pretty hard on my stomach. Like just doing that, I wouldn't recommend. I coach a bunch of runners in the marathon. I don't recommend over 100 because then you kind of start hitting the risk of stomach issues. I think it's a lot easier if you're on a bike to take more grams of carbs because your stomach's not like shaking around as much as when you're running. So yeah, interesting if he does go through with that. I don't know what gels he's using. I want to say he's using like UCAN maybe, but I could be wrong. I think I've seen videos of him using Generation UCAN. But yeah, and which is what Dakota Popane uses, so it's a good product. But yeah, interested to see what Joe Klecker does. Like I said, he started off with an okay race at Houston Marathon. I think he ran US half champs in Atlanta this year. And he ran several races leading up to this race on the US road circuit, and he kind of got better throughout the year. So I know like mentally he's a pretty tough guy. and he's been training, doing some long runs with Helen Obiri, who's a long run beast apparently in Boulder. So yeah, very interested to see what he does. I would be surprised if he was top American. I would probably slot him in that 209 to 212 range, which in New York, that's a pretty good debut. That's my guess. Same with like Charles Hicks. If he's anywhere between like 209 and 212 in this race, in New York in a debut, I think that's a successful debut for an American at this point in time. Again, it's just such a tough course, especially like it's a tough course to learn the marathon on. Like even if these guys are pro uh, athletes, right? You still have to learn the marathon. A lot of pros run their first marathon and it goes terribly. Like Casey Klinger from he trains with the BYU group, Connor Mance, Clayton Young. He runs for Brooks. He went out in 104 in Chicago, came back with a 112 or a 216, and he was going for 208. He said he was going for 208, and that was his first marathon. So you can prepare as much as you want, but like nothing's gonna punch you right in the teeth more than that last 10K in a marathon environment for the first time. So yeah, I have no idea what these guys are gonna do, but if I had to guess, it's gonna be between 209 and 212, and I think that maybe isn't exactly what they want, but I think if you got to look at it the big picture, like running 209 to 212 in New York, debuting as an American, that's a pretty good day. So yeah, that's my New York City Marathon preview. I'm very excited just to go over my picks again. And yes, obviously course records are at play here. Especially the women's one. I think the women's one is more at play than the men's. The men's is pretty fast. It's 222 for the women, so make sure you're watching out for that. My picks for each field to kind of go over those again. The women's race, I'm not going with anyone except Sifan Hassan. She's a proven champion. She's an easy pick. For the American field, top American, I'm choosing Emily Sisson. Again, I just honestly like Fiona O'Keefe's the only one that could challenge her, but I think Emily Sisson is kind of a step above. Granted, Fiona O'Keefe did win the trials, but there was the added element of heat in that one, and New York's going to be good weather. So I think if Emily Sisson just runs smart, she should be top American. And then the men's race, I'm going with Benson Kipruto. I think he has a good combination of success in fast races with a 202 PR. And then he also has success at hillier races because he did well in the Olympics. He got bronze in the Paris Olympics, which was a hilly course on a warm day. So I think he has a good combination of speed and then good on the hills. For the men's American field, I'm going with Bias Mbassa. I think, again, honestly, with this American field, I think he is kind of a step above everyone in the marathon. In this field, at least, Connor Mance is solidly on his own at the top in the Americans. For the Americans, I think Bias Mbassa is kind of on that Clayton Young level, so just a step below Connor. However, I think Hillary Bohr is very interesting as a debutant in this race. I think he can maybe sneak in and be top American if he paces well, but again, it's his first marathon. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he was top American. I wouldn't be surprised if he ran 216. So you just never really know how a debut is going to go. That's my New York City Marathon preview. Hope you enjoyed it. One last thing I wanted to talk about while I was talking about college running with Charles Hicks. There's some big news this week. I don't know if you guys pay attention much to NCAA cross country. I don't a ton anymore, but I get on a news outlet still. Let's Run, Sidious Mag, whatever. Like I'll just peruse, see what the results were over the weekend, ranking, stuff like that. And I saw that some of the Iowa State cross country team, I think 5 of their guys got popped for, they failed a drug test. I don't know if it was exactly like, it was for doping, is my understanding. I don't know what drug they were taking. I've seen some people saying it was EPO. I'm not sure. I haven't confirmed that, but I know for a fact that 5 guys on Iowa State's team are suspended for the season for failing a drug test, which is really crazy. But the interesting part of that is apparently none of their top 7. This is a relevant story because they're the best team. They're ranked number 1 in NCAA cross country. They're the huge favorites to win the NCAA meet this year. And I don't know, NCAA is so weird now because you got the NIL money coming in. And then there's so many athletes that are like so old, like over 25 years old as like freshmen or sophomores. And, they're joining teams and I don't know. I feel like there's And, for example, last year, I think there was a guy, I think his name was like Parvish Khan. He ran for Florida. I know his last name was Khan. He was from India, and he was like a fan favorite in the NCAA. He was a really good miler, and he got popped for, I think, EPO, and, got kicked off the team. Obviously, is no longer in the college system. But I don't know. I think now that there's money involved with the NCAA, and if you're at like the top level of like a big D1, um, I think there's like probably a little more pressure now to be doping because these athletes can like make pretty serious money if they're really good. So yeah, super interesting that 5 guys on Iowa State's team got popped. Um, my understanding is that what happened was one of the athletes got popped, and then he kind of like told on 4 other guys on the team, and then they subsequently like took drug tests and it got verified. But even though like this is their like B team guys, and I was reading an article on their website, like one of their guys that got popped had like a breakout race, their last race, and their coach was like, "Oh, I'm so surprised this guy had a great race," and he ended up being like the one that got popped first, which was like just kind of like humorous. Like the coach had, I guess, had no idea. Like the coach seemed very surprised in the article that this guy like had such a big improvement over the last few races. So, which is like obviously that raises some eyebrows, but um, so even though like it was apparently their B team, like their B guys that got in trouble, it does put a damper. Like Iowa State is probably going to win the men's cross country title this year at NCAA's. So even if like those 7 guys are clean, like gosh, I hope they are, just for the integrity of the sport. Even if those guys are clean, that's going to put a huge cloud over them winning the title. Like again, even if those athletes are clean, I'm still going to like question it, right? Because like 5 of their teammates got in trouble for doping. So it's like, did these guys know about it? Are they, like what's the discussion on the long runs or like in the locker room at practice? Like, are they talking about this? So I don't know. It's just like, if the B guys were like truly doing that on their own and the top Iowa State guys like had no idea about it, it just really stinks for the top guys. If they win the NCAA meet, they're just going to get a lot of questions about the credibility of the win. So I don't know. This is sad news for the NCAA. Again, it kind of started with that guy in Florida getting popped last year, good 1500 runner. And then now these Iowa State athletes got popped. And it's just like, this is becoming a thing in the NCAA. This is not going to be the last time a distance runner in the NCAA gets popped for doping because there's money involved now. The roster sizes on teams are shrinking, so there's more pressure to make the top 7, top 10 on your team. So tides are changing in the NCAA with NIL, with more money being involved. So yeah, more people are going to get popped, and the credibility of NCAA running, just like pro running, is going to be more in question now than it ever was before. So very interesting news this week. I highly recommend checking out Let'sRun.com, Cities Mag, wherever you get your running news source, and reading more into that. It's a very interesting story. So, but yeah, that's NYC preview. If I missed anybody that I should have talked about, please let me know. I had to talk about Eliud, Kipchoge, and Sifan, Hassan, obviously, but yeah, drop a comment. I would love to know. Give me some names here in the comments. 1, the overall men's winner. 2, the overall women's winner, and then give me the top American on the men and women's side. So give me 4 names in the comments. I want to hear what you guys are thinking. Do you agree with me or not? But all right, that's episode 196. Hope you enjoyed it. Again, these are solo episodes, so I always enjoy either positive or constructive criticism, or positive feedback or constructive criticism on these. I've gotten some really good constructive criticism before. That's really helped me on these moving forward. So, yeah, just drop a comment about how you feel about these episodes. I would love to see it. So but that's episode 196. We'll catch you on the next one. We got a couple exciting guests this week to look forward to. And yeah, have a great rest of your week.